if there's like a body bag worth of Curry stoppers at this point, it's what was going to happen, right?
Yep.
And Amen Thompson played one of the best defensive games I've ever seen against Curry in the regular season. Now we're in the playoffs. No shade to Amen, but this is when the big boys play, and Curry is one of them. Nobody on the Rockets left an imprint on this game, but it did feel like the only way the Warriors were going to lose is if they gave away the game. It feels like the Rockets smoked every single layup in this game. I mean, they scored, I was doing math, Mark, they scored 20 points on jump shots in this game. They got, I think it was 54 in the paint, 11 at the free throw line, and the rest were on jump shots. If I have to watch Fred VanVleet throw up another boulder, I'm going to put my head through that glass ceiling. The Golden State Warriors were great defensively, but the Houston Rockets were absolutely also equally abysmal offensively. And I think the Warriors, to me, Mark, what they showed in this game is that they're the more composed team. I mean, that's what they showed in this game. The Houston Rockets in their first pretty much playoff series together with this current group, I thought they looked a little bit too big for them at times. And Jimmy Butler was incredible for the Warriors. Steph Curry hit some unbelievably ridiculous shots, but they handled the physicality, the demanding nature that the Rockets in that defense kind of forces you to play by. And so I was impressed with the energy the Warriors came out with. I thought it would be a low-scoring game.
You were right.
But I gave a little bit too much credit to the Houston Rockets. So the Warriors did their job. They stole home court, and now they can get greedy on Wednesday.
Yeah, the Warriors scored 95 points, and they won this basketball game. To put that into context, and I know that postseason basketball is a little different than regular season, but to put that into context, entering today, the Warriors were 2-13 when scoring sub-100 points this year. So 99 or fewer points this year, they were 2-13. When they would score 95 points or fewer, and they scored 95 tonight. Before tonight, they were 0-8 when scoring 95 or fewer, and as a result, 95 points today in a win, the fewest points the Warriors have scored in a win all season long. So they did this on the defensive end, and honestly, I was thinking about this, Evan, and I see a very similar thought process on our Boxer and Gersten work injury attorneys text line while the game was going on. Kind of love looking back at the running commentary as the game was happening. This series potentially being a rock fight, you feel like that favors the Warriors because you feel confident even in a rock fight, Steph and Jimmy might combine for close to 55 or 60. And if you do that, you only have to score 90-ish to win. You don't have to work that hard, or it's not that difficult to find the spots to score the other 30 points and win a basketball game. Obviously, it's not going to play out as it went tonight in every single game. But if you're going to get like what the Warriors got from Steph and Jimmy today, and the Warriors are going to hold a Houston team to what do they shoot from the field in this game?
Not good.
39% from the field. Sub 40% from the field, and you get 31 from Steph and 25 from Jimmy. You're going to need some other scoring, but it's no longer like you're going to need Pods and Moody and Draymond and Buddy to all make shots. And so much of that just goes back to the Warriors defense, who was phenomenal in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that their defense was good. The Rockets were also just horrific when it came to shooting the basketball tonight. But it's not even about if you can get, let's say, 65 points from Curry and Jimmy like they did, or 55 points like they did from Curry and Jimmy. I just don't think the Warriors, people have this, idea that they're not a physical basketball team because they're led by Curry, who's a point guard, and he's this light-skinned guy who shoots a lot of threes. And Draymond Green's a smaller center, and they play with a lot of smaller players in general. I mean, there was a time where in the fourth quarter, it was Curry, Podziemski, Gary Payton II, Butler, and Draymond against, so literally the smallest lineup that the Warriors could throw out there against the Rockets' biggest lineup of Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., and then their two big, Steven Adams and Alperen Şengün. And they were able to hang with them. Now, yes, they got battered and bruised in the third quarter, but even when they went small in the fourth, they still found ways to kind of push back against the Rockets' physicality. So I just think that people don't give the Warriors, they look at them as this, I don't know if it's soft team, but they look at them as this small group that has to win with finesse. They did show a lot of grit, and they made a lot of hustle plays down the stretch, combined with some physical, again, taxing plays that were necessary to beat a very good Houston team.
No, you're right. They did get battered on the glass, and specifically the offensive glass. 22-6 was the edge. Now, I think a lot of people are going to be and that's the offensive rebound edge for Houston, and second chance points was 22-12. I think a lot of people are going to throw out that 22-6 offensive rebound edge for Houston, as in the Warriors are a terrible rebounding team, and you're talking about physicality. They're not very physical, and they're not really battling down low. And Steve Kerr, we're going to hear from Steve Kerr a little bit later on, and there is probably some truth to that. The Warriors could have been better on the glass, but you just mentioned those lineups. You got 6'11", 6'11", 6'10", and then Amen Thompson, who, if playing the 2 guard, oftentimes he's playing the 4. That's as big as a team could possibly get almost in today's NBA, and the Warriors are countering with an incredibly small lineup. You don't want the edge to be that drastic in favor of Houston, but I would be shocked, Evan, if the Rockets don't have an offensive rebounding edge and most likely a second chance points edge in every single game of this series. Warriors don't have to win that battle to win this series. They would like it to be a little bit closer, but they don't have to win that battle to win a game.
No, and I don't think they have to win it to win the series. The most important battle they have to win is the turnover battle. And in fact, the reason why I felt like Houston was able to get back into this game, the Warriors go up by 23 midway through the third quarter after Steph hits one of his many ridiculous shots. Yeah. And Houston gets 3 straight turnovers, one of which was just a dumb turnover on the baseline, another of which was a steal. And then they get a third one, and they score on all 3 of those possessions. And one of them was, in fact, just like a prayer thrown up by Şengün, which is one of their, 6 threes they made in this game. So the Rockets...
6 for 29.
They got kick-started on their mini run, or long run at the end of the third quarter by the Warriors being sloppy with the basketball. Yep. So to me, the bigger problem for Golden State is not, all right, how can they match the twin 7-footers of Houston, or how can they make sure they don't get absolutely... blasted on the glass. It's how do they make sure they take care of the basketball? And I thought for about, let's say, the 48 minutes, 43 minutes, they did a pretty damn good job of that. But that 5-minute stretch in the third quarter is where this game began to get a little unraveled for them.
Yeah, Warriors committed 14 turnovers. The Rockets committed 17, so the Warriors won the turnover battle there. The Warriors also took those 17 Houston turnovers and turned them into 25 points off of turnovers. The Rockets took the 14 Warriors turnovers and turned it into 23 Warriors turnovers. So the Warriors won both the turnover battle and the points off of turnover battle marginally, barely won them, but they won them. And that's important, especially on the road. And then you get the crazy shot making of Steph and Jimmy Butler kind of icing the game, playing over 42 minutes. Steph playing nearly 40 minutes himself and essentially the entire fourth quarter. And the Warriors needed it because it was kind of unraveling there. Again, you mentioned up by 23. It was 66-43, 6:20 to go in the third quarter. Then Houston gets all the way back within 4 at one point with a little less than 9 minutes to go in the fourth. And then the Warriors kind of take it home. We're going to spend so much time talking about Steph and Jimmy, what they did down the stretch. Podziemski had some big moments in the fourth quarter. Moses Moody hit his only 2 shots in this game, were huge jumpers in the fourth quarter. One, a fadeaway from the left side, late shot clock, and then another off a Curry double team, a Podziemski drive and kick to Moody in the left corner. He hit that one as well. It wasn't the most prolific scoring day, Evan, for the others, but when things got tough, and then when it was winning time and you needed a bucket from somebody, Moody stepped up. Podziemski had a big offensive rebound tip that freed up a Draymond lay-in. Some of the Warriors' others, you're not going to immediately point to them as reasons why the Warriors won this game. But when they were needed, they had a couple of big shots and were a big reason why the Warriors held on down the stretch.
No, I think they are the reason why the Warriors won this game. Obviously, in addition to Butler and Curry, but you need those guys to make plays. And I thought we talked about this on Warriors Live. Like, my 2 biggest questions were those 2 players coming into this series because they don't have much experience, if any, in the playoffs. And while they waited until the waning moments, specifically Moody, to get it done, they stepped up when they needed to. And that Moody 3, specifically the last one, I thought we saw those 2 kids, for lack of better terms, grow up tonight. And when Moody had the corner 3, which he took with no hesitation with about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the ball game, which ended up being the dagger.
Yep.
I immediately thought of the 3 that he missed against the Dallas Mavericks very close to after Jimmy got here. It was the first game they lost. It was the only game that they lost for quite some time.
When Kyrie went off.
Yeah, but they started 8-1 or 9-1 or something. And that shot that Moses Moody missed in the corner would have helped probably ice that game or put it away. I think it might have been a tie game, or they needed him to make that shot, and he couldn't hit it, and it was wide open. And it was a similar situation where the game's not over if he doesn't make that three, but then Houston's got a little momentum because they dodge a dagger. They can go and make it a one-possession game, and he makes it an 8-point game with that shot. A big shot for Moses Moody following that fadeaway jumper that you talked about. I thought Moses stepped up when the team needed him to the most. And then for Podziemski, he was a team best, plus 17 in this game. He was their leading rebounder in this game. And when you don't have a bunch of 6'10" mega athletes to combat Houston, you need different guys to scrap. And so while Pods didn't maybe have the most defining moment like Moses Moody did down the stretch of this game, both of them overall I thought were really solid.
Yeah, they were. And you mentioned the phrase that you use when describing that Moody corner three to kind of ice the game. No hesitation. That was the biggest thing for me. Obviously, you want him to make it, and in that moment, you kind of needed him to make it. But there were some moments early in the game. You and I both noticed this watching the game together here in the studio. Moody was a little hesitant offensively to begin this game, and not necessarily shocked by that. I mean, he has played in the postseason before, but his first playoff start was tonight. Played major minutes in a postseason game really for the first time. He played over 28 minutes or just under 28 minutes in this game today. There was a moment in the first half on the left wing. He had Fred VanVleet on him on the perimeter. That's a matchup that Moody should feel comfortable in using his size and get a bucket. Maybe you back him down, you draw a double team, you pass, just gain an advantage somehow, and he had no interest in dribbling, putting the ball on the deck, and doing anything, kicked it out to the left corner, late shot clock, turned into, I think, a wild shot that missed, and then Houston got the rebound and went the other way. There was a moment in the third quarter, I think, where he had the ball late in the shot clock and then ultimately threw the grenade out to Draymond in the final second of a possession that turned into a failed possession as well. So the big thing for me, Evan, obviously the make and the miss is important, but just seeing Moody in that moment, in rhythm, not hesitating, taking it with confidence, and then, of course, he hit it, which was big. But I'm with you. I think we saw those two, specifically Moses Moody in my eyes, really grow up in that moment, and that was big for the Warriors. Jimmy Butler, the closer. I mean, man, Jimmy Butler was good down the stretch in this one. He played an all-around game, 25 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 steals. Played 42 minutes, and he did not seem tired at all. I guess that's the benefit of having 4 days off before this game and having 2 more days off after. But that 1-2 punch, that combo of Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, they showed out today. And you get those two playing at that kind of level, 31 from Steph, 25 from Jimmy, it's going to be difficult for the Warriors to lose many basketball games when those two are playing like that.
Yeah, I was talking about this with my guy Devone, and I felt like Jimmy Butler had to be the best player in the series for them to win against Houston. I know Steph had 31. I know he hit some ridiculous shots, including maybe as far as degree of difficulty, that one from the wing to put him up. Was it the one that put him up 23?
I think it was.
Yeah, that one was 12 out of 10. I mean, that was an impossible shot that he hit.
In a career full of impossible shots, it's up there. I don't know where it is.
I don't want to go through all of them because he's hit like a million.
I would say 4 hours.
But of this season, it's certainly one of the toughest ones that he's hit. And even in spite of that, Jimmy Butler, in my opinion, was the best player in this game. And he did everything they needed. He also had 5 steals in this game. Like, he got to the free throw line. I think he was the one that broke the 19-3 stretch that Houston had by just getting to the free throw line, because the Warriors went like 4 minutes in the third quarter without scoring. And that's where he's just a little bit different. He's someone that can score off the bounce. He can get to the free throw line. I thought, well, Curry, and I do want to get to Curry and Amen Thompson. Jimmy Butler also urinated on him too tonight. There was back-to-back possessions where he took Thompson into the post, had a little shimmy fadeaway over him, and then the next possession down sticks a 3 in his eye and is looking at him afterwards. Like, this is, we have had, obviously, inklings and sort of previews of playoff Jimmy. There was play-in Jimmy. There was game 82 Jimmy. But he was playoff Jimmy tonight. And if this is what you're going to get from him, along with, obviously, Curry, it's what makes the Warriors really scary, man. And overall, this is a big win for them. Like, you steal home court, the ball is in your court, literally. Yep. The Warriors can now manage this series the way they see fit. They can get greedy on Wednesday, And Jimmy Butler is, looking like a pretty freaking good trade at this point.
It's a hell of a combo.
Anthony Slater reported it before the game. Kerr essentially made it be known that Kuminga is not going to be a part of the
planned rotation
unless something happens like foul trouble or maybe a mid-game adjustment. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm sorry. Like, Jimmy Butler played 42 minutes night, was 10 for 19 from the floor, was freaking awesome all around. That's the spot that Jonathan plays. And until he gets on the floor, I respect that people believe that he can add in different ways and he might be able to help. But until that happens, I'm not going to talk about him. That's the bottom line. I would rather spend time talking about players that did play, that contributed to a Game 1 double-digit victory on the road, 7-2, that now sets you up to win a first-round postseason series for the first time in 2 years. That's what I would prefer to discuss. Yeah, I mean, look, that's 4 days of rest. No, it just is. Like, seriously, you can tell when Steph has fresh legs by how many shots he takes from two. Against Houston 2 Sundays ago, he took two two-point shots. After he missed his first three, he got into the paint. And they were top-locking him. They were overplaying him. The paint was available. And you saw fresh legs. You saw a non-fatigued Steph. You saw a guy that is 100%. And he immediately gets, I think he made his first 5 twos. He ends up 7 of 10 from inside the three-point line. And then everything else opens up from there. And again, he hit some ridiculous shots. He hits the fading shot from the corner. He hits the 34-footer in the fourth. He does what he does. But you're right. Like, if there's like a body bag worth of Curry stoppers at this point, it's what was going to happen, right? Yep. It reminds me a little bit of when, remember, he had a goose egg at the FedEx Forum in December.
Yep.
Next time he goes back to Memphis, he has a 50-burger. And it's just something that he always has penciled. Zach Lowe of The Ringer. Love him, respect him. Quote, there's a possibility that Amin Thompson is a true nuisance on the level we've never seen in a playoff series for Steph Curry. That's Zach Lowe. Stephen A. Smith of ESPN. Steph is going to have a very tough time with Amin Thompson. And these are things that in some way, shape, or form have been said about Matthew Dellavedova, about Marcus Smart, about Davion Mitchell, Jared Vanderbilt, Patrick Beverley. The list goes on and on. If you are on that list as a Curry stopper, at some point, Steph is going to get the better of you. And Amin Thompson played one of the best defensive games I've ever seen against Curry in the regular season. Now we're in the playoffs. And Amin Thompson, he made a great defender, Curry did, look very average at best. And he was awesome. So no shade to Amin, but this is when the big boys play. And Curry is one of them.
Houston's going to make their run at some point. They're a good team, hosting a playoff series. They're fired up. They're going to make a run at some point. The Warriors just first happened to make it a 23-point lead, and the run was maybe a little bit bigger than I was expecting. Houston got all the way back within 3 points at one point in the fourth, but you just got to weather that storm, and the Warriors did that. And to Adam's point, they did it with a couple of big moments from some of the others. I mean, Curry hit a big three to help seal it. Jimmy had a couple of buckets back-to-back, but it was a Moody jumper, a fadeaway jumper, and then a Moody corner three. Pajemski, offensive rebound tip, leading to a Draymond second chance lay-in. Everybody contributed down the stretch for the most part, and that was really, really good to see. But you know that Houston was going to make their run at some point, and then when you get into that clutch time, Evan, in those clutch moments, in those nervous arena moments when all of the Toyota Center is on their feet and they're scared of another heartbreaking Steph shot, I think the Warriors, that's when they're the most confident because you have the two best players on the floor in those moments in Steph and Jimmy Butler, and you have two dudes who have not necessarily single-handedly, but been the driving force behind reasons why their teams have won close games in the postseasons in their past, and they showed again why you do have the two best players on the floor in those moments. I think the Warriors have a gigantic advantage in clutch time in this series, and that bore out in game one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also be pretty confident if I felt like the team I'm playing can't make a shot that's not a layup, a dunk, or a free throw. And even, they went 11 of 20 at the stripe, so they can't even make free throws.
True.
Like Houston, their two best players were Şengün in this game and Adams. Adams was awesome on the glass, and that's pretty much his role for this team. Şengün only scored 4 points in the fourth quarter. They couldn't figure out ways to get him the basketball. He was largely ineffectual in the second half. And everyone else stunk. Like, the Houston Rockets outside of Şengün and Adams were awful. Jalen Green was ineffective as usual. He has not played well against the Warriors this season. Fred VanVleet was he couldn't throw a stone into the ocean. And I thought Amen Thompson was also pretty bad in this game. Like, I think he came out, he committed a turnover, he missed his first 2 free throws. And then at the end of the first quarter, Jimmy Butler started to kind of carry the second unit past him and the rest of that good Rockets defense. Dylan Brooks was their best 3-point shooter, and he went 2 for 5. But overall, he wasn't that great either. Nobody on the Rockets left an imprint on this game. And I don't know if it's going to be the same way moving forward, but it did feel like the only way the Warriors were going to lose tonight is if they gave away the game. And they tried to do it a little bit in the third quarter. I think 5 of their overall 11 turnovers came in that third quarter, which is what kind of kickstarted Houston's run. But at the end of the day, it could have been Moody who hit a big shot. It could have been Pods. It could have been, Gary Payton. It could have been Guy Santos for all that matter. Who it wasn't going to be is anybody shooting the basketball for the Houston Rockets. They were not going to make a shot, and the only hope that they had was trying to clean the glass. So, in a way, it's like they got out-rebounded by 16 on the offensive glass, but they kind of had to. Like, that was the only way that they were going to score in this game.
Yeah, offensive rebounds and turnovers was like really all Houston could do in order to gain, decent looks at the rim. They had some good looks, but looks that you were confident in them making. I mean, VanVleet and Jalen Green, who, by the way, Jalen Green did not close the game. The Warriors, he played so poorly that he had to be benched down the stretch. Those two, Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green, combined to score 18 points over 71 minutes of basketball. They went 7 for 34 from the field and 2 for 17 from downtown.
Oh my
Yikes.
God.
You're not going to win basketball games when your starting point guard and your starting shooting guard do that.
By the way, I did overall enjoy the game. Like, it felt, I think Kerr talked about it. I know we're going to hear from him in a little bit, but it felt like an old school game.
Yeah.
And not to say that, like, Houston is just, going to miss everything. But that was the kind of game it was. The Warriors had to hit enough shots, and they had more capable shooters, should we say, than Houston tonight.
Houston will be better from the field in future games. I think the Warriors will be better on the glass in future games. The Rockets got up 11 more field goal attempts than the Warriors. The Warriors made 2 more field goals, though, than the Rockets on 11 fewer. The Warriors shot 47% from the field. The Rockets shot 39% from the field. The Rockets, they just dominate the possession battle because they get so many offensive rebounds. They get more shots on goal up, but in this game, it was not enough of an advantage there to make up for the disadvantage they had at nearly every other spot. Steph Curry asked about what Jimmy brings to the table. Here's the chef.
Jimmy's nice. Don't get that twisted. He's carried teams to the finals, and the idea of what he brings to us is another guy that's just comfortable with the ball in his hands to create for himself and for others. No matter what the situation is, you saw plenty of times he kind of made something out of nothing. He is a legitimate ball handler where we can give it to him in space, on the post, at the elbow, wherever, and teams have to respect him. So if I can space and give him room and just, again, keep the defense honest, that helps. And we've had a really good chemistry since he's been here.
That's Batman talking about Robin, or is it Robin talking about Batman?
Whoever it is. I don't. Look, that's another reason why the Warriors have a shot. Curry doesn't have to be the best player every single night for them to win in the playoffs, which is a pretty rare thing. Jimmy Butler, it was maybe not the ball-dominant 40-point playoff Jimmy that he has and possibly could be in the future, but he's exactly what the Warriors needed. And I thought that after a shaky start to the game for Golden State, Jimmy sort of settled things down, as he tends to do during the non-Steph minutes. They were +9 in the first quarter, in the beginning of the second period, and really helped them establish what eventually became and pushed to a large lead. But he's just a calming presence out there. He's someone you always feel good about having the ball in his hands. And he ended up being the nail in the coffin with those 6 points in the final, 3 minutes of the game. Yeah. And he's a big reason why they're up 1-0 and they stole home court.
Yeah, Warriors got down 7-0. They got down 13-5. They ultimately then go on a 31-13 run aided by a 14-5 burst while Steph rested that you pointed out, +9 while Steph rested for the first time in this game. They led by 13 at half. The lead quickly got up to 23 points in the third quarter. Houston climbed all the way back within 3 in the fourth, but then Moody and Pajemski and Steph and Jimmy, they iced this game when the Warriors win by 10, 95-85.
The reason why you can win a road game in as many series as that, it's because of the word that Steve Kerr was screaming at Draymond Green and Steve Kerr during that first half. Poise. And it was just a dumb, stupid turnover where Curry's trying to fake out Thompson and Green throws it past him and Curry's not looking at him. And I thought it was, I wrote this down. I love the timeout there. Excuse me. At the time, it was a 4-point game. The Warriors obviously had an advantage. There was the miscommunication, and the Rockets, I think, had got 3 straight baskets. Yeah. And Kerr just lays into his stars. And that's the kind of mutual respect that not many teams have, especially not championship teams. Like, the whole reason why I think that Steve Kerr and a lot of his messaging works, it's because he's as tough on his best players as he is on the 15th man on the roster. And I understand that there's a lot made about the favoritism from Steve Kerr, and he likes these guys over these guys. Well, if you mess up, it doesn't matter if you're Steph Curry or Draymond Green.
You're going to get it.
Are in the crosshairs. And he kept screaming poise at them, according to Anthony Slater, who also asked him about that after the game. That was the most frustrated that he was. And I thought Kerr, despite the 23-point lead dwindling down to 3, I thought he coached a pretty good game. There was another timeout that he called in the second half that I thought was also a good spot forward as well. And it was after they turned it over 3 straight times, which kind of kickstarted that run for the Houston Rockets. And again, those kinds of in-game, just settle down moments, but also using them to establish a level of expectancy for the best players on your team. That's why Steve Kerr's got 100 playoff victories. That's why the Warriors have won 28 of 29 series with a game on the road.
29 of 30 now.
29 of 30 now. It's because they have someone that sets the tone at the top, and they have players that are willing to play with that level of mutual respect for their head coach.